Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Capitalist Investor. You have your man, your boy, Diamond Hands D, and back again by popular demand, our guy Tony Zabagala. What's up, Tony?
What's up, man? I'll never get over that nickname you guys coined for yourself. I'll never get over it.
Diamond Hands D, it just rolls off the tongue.
It does roll, but it just, I got nothing.
So
I will just giggle every time you say it.
You have a nickname? We need to come up with an on-air nickname for Mark.
Mark?
Yeah.
I mean, the Dizzle.
The Tep Dizzle, I know, is the old one.
Oh, is it? We need a new one?
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
All right. We're going to have to put a Twitter poll up on that, too, so maybe we can get the public's opinion on that one.
All right.
But we haven't really made too much headway on that. I saw on Twitter, actually, someone said Teflon Tepper.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is
That's not bad, but it doesn't roll.
Yeah.
It doesn't roll.
I'm with you on that one. So, all right. Well, let's get into this week's topic, which I think is a very good one. And, you know, a little different than just picking stocks and things like that and talking the investments in the economy and Bitcoin and all that good stuff. So there's actually been a couple pieces of news that I've seen recently related to football. So the football season is kicking off. We saw the Hall of Fame game here, you know, just right down the road from us.
Yep.
A couple weeks ago for the airing of this episode. I think we'll have some preseason games, some real ones, which we didn't get last year. We should have those probably the weekend before this airs, since we're about a week behind. But the big headline right before the camp started was about the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
So basically, the stadium in Buffalo was built in 1973, which is a long time ago now. And the Pagulas, who head up the ownership group for the Bills, basically went to the city and the state and said, hey, you know, we need a cool $1.5 billion from taxpayers.
Wow.
To not just for the Bills Stadium, but also for the Buffalo Sabres arena, which is also in bad need of repairs. The Pagulas own that franchise as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I can, two things. So I can get behind a multi-use type of facility. You know, if you're going to have two professional sports teams, and I can get behind that. But I might get behind it a little bit. You've been to a Buffalo's game. I had the luxury of going to one. If you have not been to that stadium, it's like going to a high school football game. Like, it is literal bleachers.
Yep.
It is wide open. It's obviously cold in Buffalo, so I went in I think they were playing back when Tim Tebow time when they brought him off the bench and he was doing his magic or whatever. I went and saw them play Tebow, and I mean, it was minus 15 degrees, and there is no shelter from that. Not even when you go and get like a hot coffee or chocolate or something. Like, it is wide open.
Yep.
It is throwback to high school football days.
Absolutely. You know, that's a great way to describe it. I have actually not been back for many, many years to go to a game. But what Tony said is 1,000% true. And we actually went through the same thing here in Cleveland when the Browns left.
Yeah.
And we're talking about.
So that's why we talked about this before. And I started some old emotions started coming back. The Browns have been ripped away from us. Mm-hmm. I'm a diehard Browns fan, even since I was a little kid. My family watched it. You kind of grow up that way, right?
Yep.
And they were ripped away. And actually, now we have another controversy. I know you talk football in the Buffalo, but like, the thing that I'm really heated about is, first of all, they changed the name of the Indians, and now they're trying to restructure a 15-year deal to keep them here in town. Mm-hmm. And they came up with a price tag, and I think our stadium is gorgeous. I really love the layout. Could it use some polishing? I'm sure it can, but I still think it's still a great state of the art kind of stadium.
Yep.
And they want $435 million to stay here for 15 years. Some of the math behind it was, the city's going to throw in, $115 million. The county's going to throw in $140 million. The state, $30 million. Start adding this stuff up, and ownership's paying 1/3 of that cost. Mm-hmm. And the funny part about that is, if you're an Indians fan, Guardians fan, whatever you want to call them, the Indians. I'm not even going to say that name again. You know that the Dolans have been known to be quote unquote cheap.
Yes.
They don't spend a lot of money for the players on the field.
The Dolans, the owners of the Cleveland Indians.
Yes, yeah. And I looked this up. The team is worth, according to Forbes 2020, $1.15 billion.
Right.
Dolans bought it for $325 million 20 years ago. 6.5% annualized rate of return. That's pretty good. I did the math on that. But to put that in then perspective, the New York Yankees blow everyone away at $5 billion. And then Houston. So Houston is a team that's won a couple championships. They got a solid team right now, $1.8 billion. So now you can kind of see where the Indians fall at $1.1 billion.
Right.
I don't know, man. You want to build a stadium. All this money is going in there. Where does the revenue come from? Obviously, state, county, local taxes are going to go up, sin tax. I don't know if they're going to be printing extra lottery tickets. I don't know, man. Scratch offs. I don't know how this works, but what's your opinion? Should the owner be, on the hook for more or less?
Yep.
I think that's what it comes down to, and I think a lot of people have different opinions on that.
Absolutely. So, much like the Bills and the Browns playing in an open air stadium, hey, that's football weather, right? You gotta have that home field advantage. I did feel it that way when I was 19 years old. Now that I'm old, I don't want to sit outside to watch a Browns game or a Bills game. I just don't want to do it.
Right.
Both stadiums have crazy wind that rip through there. It's just not enjoyable for me anymore.
Yeah, when the Browns were coming back, they talked about putting a roof on top and that they'll take away from the nostalgia of the Browns. Or same thing we're talking about. But, as maybe somebody that's more of okay, what kind of use can we get out of this? If we slap a dome on it, I could use it for indoor concerts. I might be able to host a Super Bowl, other types of events, things like that.
Yep.
And that makes sense on an economic sense. I know it costs more to build a dome, but
yep.
What are you missing out on for not having that?
Exactly. So how I used to like sitting outside, I used to think, hey, these cities and these states and these municipalities, they got to come to the table. That's what I used to think. They have to, whatever it takes to keep these teams in town, right? Because we saw the Browns move. And to finish the setup on the Bills story, the ownership group asked for $1.5 billion and essentially said, without saying, if you guys don't want to pay for this, we got other guys who are willing to do this.
Right.
And Austin, Texas is the name that came up.
Yep.
So the Bills have had no discussions with Austin. Jerry Jones, if anyone knows anything about the NFL, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, would never in a billion years ever allow a team to move into Austin.
Right. Well, you have how many football teams are you going to have in Texas? You already have two, right?
Yep.
NFL football teams.
Exactly.
So it kind of makes me look at again, bringing the Indians back to thing. I don't know. I hope somebody on the Ohio side of the table is negotiating this well, because I feel like it's a setup, and this could be a setup for, Buffalo. You could use it in any sense, but a setup to sell the team. They changed the name, and you can say hey, look at this future owner. You got a 15-year contract here.
Right.
And also, that's where I would be okay, are you selling this? Are you packaging this up to sell it? But also, if I was on Ohio, I'd be all right, we're going to dump all this money in there. Can you put a product on the table? I know you're coming to the table with $150 million, but we're coming up with 300 million.
Exactly.
Can you do something? Can you spend some money? Could you, Lindor wanted to stay. I mean, Manny or J Ram wants to stay. Like, come on.
So yeah, completely agree. So that opens it up. That opens the debate. Who should pay for these stadiums? And like I was saying, I've come around. I think it should be a split for sure. But as you dive into the numbers, and this is a surprising take from me, as you dive into these numbers, the amount that the local, city, state, municipalities have to pay in additional taxes for what they're actually getting back.
Yeah,
it's no longer equitable at the old style splits.
And like you look at just any city in general, Buffalo, Cleveland, like how many people are actual sports fans?
Right.
I don't know, like 50%. So you got a 50% of the population paying for something that they don't care about.
Right, exactly.
Because you're going to be jacking up taxes on parking, concerts, sports events, sin tax. You'd start rattling this stuff up, and it sounds like inflation to me.
Right. Another one that was a local one was for the Cavs, right? And I think this is a pretty good example because you and I have been able to see this firsthand. Not with the team actually leaving, but with LeBron leaving, right? And we were able to see with our own eyes the impact that had on the downtown businesses and the restaurants. There's no question that there was fallout from that. And if the Indians or the Guardians were to leave town, which again I don't think that is likely, but if they were to leave town, that would put a big dent in the downtown economy. But again, what is the right number? Going back to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse with the Cavs, Dan Gilbert is the owner of the Cavs, and I think he was like it was something crazy of the richest people in the world. He's in the top 15 for sure.
Wow.
And the Cavs, they just finished a really great renovation to their stadium. The original deal was for $140 million upgrade. And at the end of the day, Dan Gilbert essentially paid for 62% of it, and the city paid for roughly 38%.
Yeah,
so
$140 million. I mean, if you saw what they've done, I can see it. They did a great job. This is LeBron money being put to they won the championship several years. They renovate, but I think they had to renovate it so that they can repurpose it towards concerts. They have a minor league hockey team, Monsters, which I enjoy going to.
Absolutely.
They can repurpose that. So that money, I feel, is well spent on that facility. The owner came up with the majority of it, which is fantastic. And it does, bring people to local businesses to like go and eat before they go to the game, things like that. I don't know what, the Indians, for example, again, 400 million plus. I don't know. I mean, that's good for what, 6 months out of the year? I don't know. But I think it was good repurposed money. Unfortunately, just no one's ever going to want to come to the Cavs unless we draft them again. Draft a multi-generational type of player like LeBron.
So and one more I was looking at because it was new last year. The Dome Stadium in Las Vegas, the new one, it cost $1.8 billion. $750 million of that came from Clark County. $200 million came from the NFL. They did the PSLs for seat licenses as well, like they did in Cleveland.
Yep.
But that was more of a split, and that was a move, right? So the Raiders moved away from Oakland and moved to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd love to know clarity on like the this came up in my mind. Green Bay, doesn't the city or the fans, don't they own the team?
Yes.
Like, I wish I knew how that worked. I never did the due diligence to really fit, but it sounds amazing. I don't know how it works. Like if they need $150 million, like that's coming straight from the taxpayers, but they also probably get to reap the rewards of revenue sharing and things like that. You know, so
for sure. So yeah, I got one little thing I want to talk about as well, but that is pretty much the issue in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And it's just my opinion that I wish all sides could come together for better solutions. You know, some of these billionaire owners don't need the public funding. They shouldn't be forced to do that by using the threat of leaving. However, if you're going to build a stadium like Tony said, make sure that it's multi-use. That's my big problem with what they did in Cleveland, because that stadium they built sits empty 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Is right on the lake. It gets pounded by weather. It's not a fun place to be in the wintertime. You know, come up with better solutions, right? And I think it would make both the public and the private people happy. So, all right. And one more NFL topic that I saw, and I think it actually might have some traction behind it. So, one of the ex-ESPN presidents, John Skipper, was on some interview. I can't find out which one here. But he basically said, it was on the Dan Le Batard show. He essentially said that one day you may see the Super Bowl on pay-per-view. Yeah. So, you know, obviously we don't have to have a long conversation about it. But what do you think about that, Tony? Do you think the Super Bowl on pay-per-view is in the near future?
I'm surprised it hasn't been done already. Come on, really? You know, as specifically, I feel like as the NFL gains more popularity, and it felt like it's been almost exponential over the last several years. Absolutely. I would people pay it? I don't know. Yes, you're right. Because they're making money on ads. I mean, I'd like to see how that works, because I feel like you're still going to see ads.
Yep,
and,
for sure.
You know, but now I'm going to have to pay $70 to have it. You know, and it's going to force a lot more parties and get-togethers,
right,
I
exactly.
guess, which is cool. You know, who doesn't enjoy Super Bowl Sunday? I'm just surprised they haven't done it so far. It's definitely on the docket. It will definitely happen, 100%. I just don't know when. Probably in the next 2 years, I'd imagine.
Oh, wow.
I can't. Why wouldn't they do that? That doesn't make. I mean, they're in it for money. They have all this, all this streaming money coming in from all these networks. Maybe there's something in those contracts that prevent them from doing it. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, the times, they are changing, right? So when I first heard that take, my first reaction was anger. Like, hey, there's no way they can do that. But it's going to happen. You know, it is the most popular television show by a far margin.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe now that I think about it, I'm sure that, I don't know what station it's on, CBS or whatever, I'm sure they have them for a 10-year contract.
Right.
So maybe it would happen in the next decade. Once but they're getting paid big money from the network. Are they going to recoup that money by charging you $70 to $100 for the game? Like, I don't know. It's a good question.
I would think so.
I would think so too.
You know, the biggest pay-per-view event was Mayweather-Pacquiao in 2015. 4.6 million buys and $600 million in revenue.
How about that YouTube star? How much money did that? How much did that bring in? Like, I forget, but like
the Logan Paul.
Yeah, like I don't even know.
Ridiculous amount.
Yeah, and I don't even. Me, I'm just kind of out of that scene. Like
Yeah.
I never even heard of him, and I'm like, who is this guy, and how did he get paid $50 million to be in a fight where he almost probably. They took it easy on him. I think.
Oh yeah,
Mayweather.
I think everyone knew that.
hit him in the jaw. He almost held him up and hit him again.
They don't call him Money May for nothing, man.
Right.
He gave the people a show. Everyone, got at least some of their money's worth out of that.
The Super Bowl is an event that people will pay for.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yeah, and you can see it's changing already. 5 years down the road, I don't think a lot of people are going to have cable. It's been an exodus and now there's so many streaming services. We almost have the same problem all over again. But there's I just don't watch my cable TV. The only time I do is really for live sports.
Yeah, I mean, a cable company is probably like the transition of Blockbuster.
Right.
You know, just within that,
Great
it was
analogy.
gone. It was a popular thing that just poof, gone.
Vanished.
Same thing with cable companies. Like, you know, the pandemic really, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes and like, hey, I could have all these other features for, you know, 20% of the cost of what cable cost, right?
So yeah, I think you'll see it there, folks, one day pretty soon. And I also think network television, I also think that's kind of on the way out.
Yeah.
I think the sports are really all that it's propping it up right now. I'm not sure who's tuning in anymore for, you know, CSI, Las Vegas or whatever, but it's a business model that I don't think is going to work for too much longer.
Yep.
So that is it for this week's episode. Tony, thanks so much for hopping back on. I think actually I'll be off next week, so you might get Tony again. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Mark says here.
Right.
But thank you for tuning in. As always, hit that subscribe button if you would. We would genuinely appreciate it. And if you leave us a good review, send us a screenshot to info@swpconnect.com, and we will hook you up with some cool swag. And I think we're going to get some new hoodies here for the fall, so that'll be good. So thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.